Yesterday I uploaded a video on my new Timberwolf Glock frame from Lone Wolf Distributors, and after I uploaded that video there seemed to be some common questions that kept coming up again and again and some things that people wanted to see. Now, one of the things people kept wanting to see was this frame side by side with the Glock OEM frame. Now, I hope they're wanting to see them side by side, not on top of each other overlaid. Now, a couple people asked to see them overlaid on each other, but I can't do that because of the perspective. One would be closer to the camera, so you really wouldn't even see the one behind. You wouldn't really learn anything from that. But I will try to show them side by side so people can see some of the things that they want to see and see how they stack up next to each other. I'll also try to answer some of the more common questions that kept coming up again and again about this frame. Now, the first one is, does this frame fit regular Glock holsters? And the answer to that is, well, yes, if you mean does it fit the Glock holsters I have. That's all I can answer. I have a few different Glock holsters. This frame fits every one of them. Now, the trigger guard is a little bit different, but it doesn't have anything added to it. It doesn't have anything in places where the old grip frame doesn't have something. It just has something missing that the old grip frame has. It doesn't have that little bump out at the end right there. So as far as regular holsters, still locks into them perfectly. That is as far as the holsters I have. I have a couple of Kydex holsters. I have a couple inside waistband holsters for a Glock 19. This gun fits all of them. So I'm going to have to say from my own personal experience, it fits at least most holsters you're going to get for a regular Glock. The other question that came up a lot is about the magazines. A lot of people are concerned that since the grip angle is different, that the magazine goes in at a different angle and will cause feeding issues. Well, I don't think that's going to be an issue because I can't even really tell if there is a difference. If you look at the magazine there, it just looks like it rides like in any other Glock. I'll show them side by side here in a second. But if there is a difference, it's so small, I can't even really notice it. So I don't think it's a big enough difference that it's going to matter. Now, I don't really work for Lone Wolf or anything. I'm not an official spokesman for them, so they don't really give me any information. I'm sure they can tell you whether there is a difference or not. But if there is one, it's so slight that I can't tell. I mean, here's the magazine in the replacement frame. And here it is in the standard frame. I really can't see a difference. I've tried, I've measured everything. I can't detect a difference. So I'm willing to say there isn't one. If there is one, it's so small it's not noticeable. So I don't think it's going to be a problem with angle there because, like I said, I don't think there's even a difference. Because if you look at the mag wells here side by side, I don't really think they changed the angle of the grip any. They just changed what's in front of it and what's behind it. If you see, there's much more behind the mag well on the regular Glock one here on the right than there is on the Lone Wolf frame here on the left. So what they did is they just changed the stuff around the mag well, not so much the mag well itself. At least that's how it appears to me. Like I said, I could be wrong. I don't work for Lone Wolf, so I'm not privy to their inside information, or that might even be published information because I didn't look it up first. But like I said, as far as I can tell, looks like it's pretty much the same. Now here are the two trigger guards side by side, and as you can tell, like I said, there's nothing on the Lone Wolf one here that isn't on this one. It's just the other way around. There's something on this one that isn't on this one. The outside dimensions are pretty much the same. Now I do believe that the Lone Wolf frame here has a little bit more space inside the trigger guard than the Glock one, but the outer dimensions are the same except for that little bump out at the bottom of the Glock OEM frame's trigger guard. Now, I also mentioned the differences in the rails, and as you can see here, this is the Glock rail on the right, the Lone Wolf rail on the left. The Lone Wolf one has the more standardized rail. So I said that was a good thing, and I still stand by that that's a good thing. But here you can see them side by side and see the difference. And you will notice that there's also a serial number on the Lone Wolf frame. A lot of people ask me that question a lot too. They said, is the Lone Wolf frame a serialized part? Do I have to use an FFL to get it? Yes, it is a receiver for a gun, so therefore it is a serialized part. You will need an FFL to get this part. It is a gun as far as the law is concerned. Here are the actual grips side by side. Like I said, you'll notice that there is far less on the back side of the Lone Wolf frame here than there is on the Glock frame. It doesn't have that big awkward curve on it that a lot of people don't like. Also, you'll notice that on the Lone Wolf frame, the finger grooves in the front are far less pronounced than on the Glock. The Glock has much more pronounced finger grooves. A lot of people don't like those because it doesn't leave a lot of room for normal size fingers. You got more room for fingers on the Lone Wolf frame than you do on the Glock frame. I don't know how well you can see this here, but you can see the two mag releases. As you can see, the mag release on the Lone Wolf frame is much larger and easier to manipulate. The one on the Gen 3 Glock frame is very small. Now the one on the Gen 4s are bigger, but I still like the one on the Lone Wolf better than even the Gen 4 ones. Now when I line them up side by side, the one thing you will notice the most, the biggest difference, is that on the black frame, which is the Lone Wolf frame, there is that little beaver tail thing, that little stick out at the back that helps prevent slide bite. So that's probably the biggest difference in the two frames. Everything else is very similar. Now, there are some slight molding differences between the two and some different ways that they shape some things internally, but it still uses all the same parts. It's very similar inside. There's very little difference inside the gun. You'll notice a little bit of differences in the way they enclose some of the rails, or the way they enclose the firing block there, but still, overall, it's still very similar. Now, one difference that I didn't mention last night, and I'm not sure how well you can see it here, is the trigger. The face on the Lone Wolf trigger is smooth, and the face on the Glock trigger is, of course, ridged. A lot of people don't like these ridges. They don't bother me. I've never understood why people hate them so much. But if you don't like them, the Lone Wolf one has the smooth trigger face. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the differences between the two frames. Like I say, I think the Lone Wolf frame is definitely an improvement over the OEM Glock frame. So I hope I answered the questions people had, and I hope I showed you the things you wanted to see. I didn't include the frame side by side last night in my other video because it was going to push the video over 10 minutes, and I thought, well, people won't miss it. They won't even know it was there, so they won't miss it. But apparently, it's something people wanted to see. So I wanted to make this video tonight just to show you something that you really wanted to see. But in the interest of fairness, now that I've shown you something that you really wanted to see, now I'm going to show you something that I'm pretty sure you don't want to see.